morning and welcome to the Abundant Retirement Show here on Rewind. It's Ross Wealth Advisors. RossWealthAdvisors.com is the website. Really easy to find by telephone. Pick it up and call 614-545-0277. The man who is the reason you will want to do that, sitting right here next to me, the retirement boss, Don Ross.
I love
Good
that.
morning, Don.
Good morning. How are you today, Joe?
I'm doing fantastic. Another fine day. Good to wake up on this side of the grass. As far as I'm concerned.
Vertical and
so
above.
taking nourishment and ambulatory.
Looking
Those
down
are
at
all good things.
Looking down at the grass, not up at the roots.
Absolutely. We're here to help with your abundant retirement. If you are currently retired or you are retirement minded, which is 5 to 10 years, most likely, within away from what you feel is the day you're going to start a new chapter in your life, and that is the chapter that's called retirement, which I hate to say that it's the final chapter, but it is it's the chapter that we wait for, that we work for when we save all of our lives, and that hopefully we've thought about planning for.
Yeah.
And that is one of the most important things of all. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people in general, work very hard throughout their lives, and
Right.
they save and they put money away, but they don't really spend an awful lot of time trying to figure out what they're going to do once that day comes, or when they get close to that day that they decide, well, this is the day I'm going to stop working this job and I'm going to start only working for me. And that is your retirement.
Yeah, and everybody does it on different terms, whether it's an age or a date. The hundreds and hundreds of families I've sat with over the years, and that's married couple, singles, widows, divorcees, whatever.
This is like when you're reading a contract. When you hear the word family, it applies to you, whatever your family is. If it's a family of one, it's a family of 15.
Yep.
Married, whatever. It's family is you. And
Whatever
it's whatever you are.
Whatever your concerns are.
Absolutely.
I sit down with widows, singles, divorcees, whatever it is. If you're worried about running out of money, taxes, a written income plan for retirement, even if you're 10 years out, like Joe said, this is what we do. And get to know me either with a phone call so we can sit down one-on-one, or learn a little bit more. And go to my website, RossWealthAdvisors.com.
A wealth of information there. A great place to start.
Let's get to know each other.
Don's in the business of worry reduction, I think, is a good way of putting it. I mean, you absolutely do have to think about, and you do absolutely have to plan for your abundant retirement. But there's no reason that you should worry about it. You shouldn't have to worry about it. You should be confident and know what's going to happen and how it's going to play out, and what your income is going to be, and how it's going to work over the course of your retirement time.
We want you to sleep well at night.
Absolutely.
So today, in the last couple of weeks, we've been going over my book that I wrote, The Retirement Survival Guide. It's a survival guide similar to the one I was handed in boot camp in 1982 as an 18-year-old recruit, and all the ways to preserve and protect yourself in retirement.
We're up to Chapter 3, by the way.
Chapter 3.
This is the third week.
Is about preservation. Some of the quotes, I'm actually looking at the first page of the chapter. It's all about preserving and enjoying your money, not necessarily accumulating. I sat with two people today, or this week, that are almost retired, and they agree that basically 90% of their accumulating is over. Now we want to start putting in preservation strategies. And if we don't plan properly, it's like Confucius said, the famous noble gentleman from hundreds of years ago, in all things, success depends on previous preparation, and without such preparation, there is to be such failure. So,
he must have been difficult to be around with all of these incredibly wise pronouncements he was making, because I bet he was hated at the time.
I think
there goes Confucius again. He thinks he knows it all. And here we are hundreds of years later and still quoting him.
I think he lived probably on a 100-acre ranch all by himself.
He had to have, but his many quotes of Confucius come to play in day-to-day life, and if you pay attention to them, they're very wise indeed.
Yeah.
Very wise indeed.
In the chapter, I start this chapter 3 of 10 chapters in my retirement survival guide that I want to get to you, 614-545-0277. Or, you can email me, don@rosswealthadvisors.com. And I want to get this book to you so you can start learning immediately. It's a 2-hour read, but in Chapter 3, I talk about defining asset safety and risk. Each and every one of you out there has a different definition, whether you've ever thought about it, for your retirement savings. Whether you have $10,000 saved or $10 million, risk is all about how much can you afford and how much can you stomach losing when we have the next 2008 or 2001.
And just because you have, say you have $1 million versus $10 million doesn't mean that a person with $10 million is content to lose more.
Everybody has.
You know what I mean?
Right.
The person with $1 million may be happy, or not happy, but may be comfortable with, losing 10% of it, whereas the person with 10 million may not be.
Your balance sheet is irrelevant. It's you've built this up over the last 20, 30, maybe 40 years if you've been retired, and we want to preserve, protect it. So one of the things, and I do this exercise with most people that come in the office, is the rule of 100. Now, it's a rule of thumb on understanding how much of our savings for retirement do we want to protect from absolute market risk. In other words, if you lose 20% in your portfolio, what do you need to make to get back to where you are? Well, hypothetically, you don't need to make 20. You got to make more than that.
You got to make more than 20.
And now you're assuming more risk.
Because you're behind. That's correct.
So the rule of 100 is a strategy that if you subtract your age from 100, that the answer to that might be the amount you want to have that's at risk, and the balance of that you might want to protect. And there's ways that we can do protection planning, and it really has to be done one-on-one when we're sitting down. And
because everybody is different, everybody's situation is different, everyone's needs and desires of life are different.
Because the key with what we do and why Chapter 3 is important is when you start taking your savings and generating income from it, and everybody does it differently. Some of you want money that's consistent and reliable and maybe even guaranteed. So there's different ways to do that with some of these preservation type asset, or as we call them, tools. So I even go as far sitting down with families and say, all right, you have green money, which is safe and secure, generating income, and you have red money, which is your risk, your portfolio in the stocks. Now, we talked about investing a few chapters ago, and that's another whole conversation. Are you truly diversified? Do you know the fees you're paying? And that's when I offer my financial MRI to analyze what's going on inside your portfolio, your 401k, any of your accounts where you have mutual funds or ETFs and all that. So it's very important as we look at the preservation of what you've built. How do we protect it? And one easy way to understand or share that, Joe, is you go to Vegas with $100 and you make 50. You're now at 150. You take the 50 off the table, and you're halfway ahead. Maybe you're up another 50. You take that off the table. Now you've protected what you came with.
Right.
And you can now take a little bit more risk.
Because worst case scenario at this point, if you've protected what you've accumulated, you still are even. At the worst case scenario, you're even.
So I show families every day how to do that. Again, individuals, divorcees, widows, married couples, every day, how to do that. And it's custom made for your needs. I don't answer to a bank, a brokerage firm, or a mutual fund company. I'm independent. I answer to you, and we together, you and I, will build the best plan that makes sense for you. And we'll do it in our office right here in Central Ohio on Fishing Road in Upper Arlington. And I'd love to hear from you if you're interested in learning more about not only my book, but the first step is analyzing your portfolio. 614-545. Actually, it's 614-545-0277. All right, Joe, do that again, because I don't even know my own number.
614-545-0277.
I'm in the numbers business, and I don't even know my own phone number.
That's all right. The good news is when you call that number, even if Don doesn't answer, Don will be the one that will field your call, that will get the information, and that will communicate with you. This is all about world-class service. That's what Ross Wealth Advisors, one of the many things that Ross Wealth Advisors is all about, and that brings to the table that you may not necessarily be getting with your current advisor. And as Don has said in the past, many times, many of your new clients and current existing clients had other advisors at the time they met you.
50%, and just this week alone, 2 families are leaving long-term financial advisors. One is at Fidelity, which is a great company. but it's about the customized service and building a quality of life plan, not just being a number to a big firm. And so that's why we're different.
I mean, I guess it's it's very much akin to going into a chain restaurant, and you get to order what they have on the menu,
right?
And that's what they make. Or you can go into maybe an individually owned, chef-run restaurant and say, well, chef, do you have this? Can you make this? And then, yeah, if that's the way you like it, that's the way I'll make it. It's that kind of difference, and it's that kind of service too. And I think anyone that's been in a restaurant can relate to the difference between oftentimes a chain restaurant or an individually owned and operated restaurant. It's generally a different experience, and it's a better experience most often.
So you're comparing me to a French restaurant.
I am, and I expect you to have the mustache and the hat next week when you come in.
That's
perfect. You're already getting the accent down. That's
actually,
fantastic.
when you travel, and my wife and I went to Paris for my 50th a few years ago. Yes, I'm 55. It was so neat because you don't even really ask for a menu, and I even do this around town. Sometimes if you're at the right restaurant, a little more upscale, and you don't see exactly what you want on the menu.
Yes.
A restaurant will go out of your way and say, "Sure, we can make that." Now, I'm not talking about going to Wendy's or Burger King and asking for a filet, but at some of the nicer restaurants, and I won't plug any, but there's some really good ones in town.
There are quite a few.
They will make something that's off menu for you, and just ask.
I'm not going to try to tell it. It's a Cameron Mitchell story. It was a story that Cameron Mitchell told when I was at some place that he was speaking, and he was talking about having gone somewhere, and he had a child with him, and he wanted to get a child's milkshake. And forgive me if I screw up the story, but
I think he writes about that in his book.
Yeah, basically, and they said, well, we don't have that. We can't make that for you. So he went through the whole rigmarole of, what do you have, milk? You have ice cream. Well, could you do this, and mix it up and then bring it to him? Would that be okay? Oh yeah, we could do that, I guess, but we can't give you what you want. And so the long of the story, of the short of the story was, don't say no. Do what your customer needs. Give your customer what they want, and that's a long way of getting to that's what you do.
Well, yeah, I mean that's why I don't have to answer to any employer that pays me. I answer to my clients, and we customize a plan. And by the way, Cameron is a great guy. He was actually my high school class president. And
is that right?
Super guy, yeah.
Darn.
Class 81 UA. And but yeah, he built an empire in restaurants of, let's make what the people want and give them quality. I always call it the Ritz-Carlton service.
Absolutely.
The question is, the answer is yes. What's your question? And I'm the same way. So maybe we ought to go to break if you want to do some contact information, Joe.
That's the long way about going back to what I initially started with, which was the world-class service that you get at Ross Wealth Advisors from Don and from everyone else that's on his team, and all the experts in the various areas that are handled for you by Ross Wealth Advisors. When it comes to your abundant retirement, that's what Ross Wealth Advisors is all about. The website, I don't know how many times we could say it, but I'll say it once again, rosswealthadvisors.com. Just put in a search engine on your favorite internet browser, Ross Wealth, and it'll pop right up. It's not a problem. You can email Don at rosswealthadvisors.com. That's another easy one to remember. Telephone number, just like most of them, 614-545-0277. Once again, 614-545-0277. And we'll be back with more of the Abundant Retirement Show from Ross Wealth Advisors. Joe Bradley here with Don Ross, the retirement boss of Ross Wealth Advisors, and we're discussing retirement planning versus retirement income planning. It's just a one word, but big difference, right, Don?
Absolutely. Significant difference, Joe. Retirement planning is about growing your assets, like in your 401ks, your IRAs, deferred comp. So when you retire, you have that money to enjoy that abundant retirement. Retirement income planning is different in our area of expertise. Remember, when that paycheck stops, everything changes. Are your assets positioned and invested properly to generate reliable income, regardless of what happens on Wall Street or Main Street, and more importantly, how long you live?
So Ross Wealth Advisors is really about specializing in this, right?
Absolutely. Any mistakes during this phase of your life, could be catastrophic.
Whether you're retired or within 5 years of retiring or just have concerns about whether you're going to have enough money, call Don's office and schedule a complimentary visit. The number is 614-545-0277, or you can simply visit rosswealthadvisors.com.
And welcome back to the Abundant Retirement Show here on Rewind from Ross Wealth Advisors. Again, can't say this too often. Feel free to call the office anytime, even right now. 614-545-0277. And get started. Take the first step. One of the best first steps and almost a required step is reading Don's book, the U.S. Retiree Survival Guide. It's in its third printing. As of this moment, it has a nice new picture of Don on the cover, but all of the same quality information on the inside. And we've been working our way through the book, actually, and we're this week trying to focus on Chapter 3. Chapters 1 and 2 were the previous 2 weeks. If you listen to podcasts on Apple iTunes, you can go back and get the podcasts of previous shows and listen to them at your leisure. So.
And it's titled the Abundant Retirement Show.
Yes, Abundant Retirement Show. Very simple to find. If you use podcasts on Apple iTunes, you know how to find it.
Yep.
That's all you have to look for is Abundant Retirement Show. But for right now, Chapter 3, it's about preserving what you have accumulated and what you have, and not losing it, preserving it.
Preserve and protect. So. Chapter 3, and I just thought it'd be a good idea to go through parts of it. I physically have the book here. Sure, I know it because I wrote it, but we talk about red and green money. We talked about in the first part of the show the rule of 100,
Let's go into the rule of 100 again a little bit more. That might be something that people will have heard about, or when they look at the book, they'll say, "Oh, the rule of 100."
It's a rule of thumb, and it's if you're 60 and you subtract your age from 100, that's 40. 40 might be what you want to leave in market-based portfolios that can go up and down.
That's as a percentage of the total
how much
that
you have
accumulated.
Saved, right.
Okay,
very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
So, the balance, we might want to use some kind of tools or assets or investments that are more in the line of preserving, because if you're retired or close to retiring, you've done most of the accumulating you're going to do, and our specialty is how do you distribute that. And my big thing is, it's even bolded in my book, that if retirement represents a fundamental change in your life, I think your investments need to make a fundamental change. And I talk about this in my public workshops that you can attend at local libraries or restaurants. And people, they nod their head. They're like, yeah, I mean, when I analyze your portfolio, and I'd love to, and we talk about it every week, is do a financial MRI, just like a doctor does an MRI. Let's see what's hidden in your portfolio. I can uncover that if you're 55, 60, 65, 70, I can uncover to see if your portfolio is designed for a 30-year-old, meaning way too much risk, where a 30-year-old has time to make up for the next 2008. You do not.
And I think that's probably a lot more common than one might expect. If you think you've planned ahead. You planned ahead. Well, when I was 35, I put all these things in place, and I've had a plan, and I've got a plan. Well, yeah, you've got a plan, but you've got a plan that's 30 years old.
And none of you intend to harm yourself, but that's why I've been doing this for 30 years. I want to show you strategies now to preserve what you've done, so you can have that abundant retirement and enjoy retirement, not worry. Because some of you will tell me, well, if things get a little tight, we'll just live on less if our portfolio's down. I'm like, no, I want you to enjoy retirement no matter what's going on Wall Street or Main Street, or for crying out loud in Washington, D.C. with regulations and all that. And that's what a solid retirement's about. And if you're invested in appropriately at this stage of your life, meaning, hey, could your portfolio lose 25 or 30%? I think you should know that sooner than later.
Right. You should know it before it happens so that you can take steps to keep it from happening versus finding out afterward and then trying to, and probably being forced, or at least feeling like you're in a position where you've got to then make mistakes to try to make up for a previous mistake, which, as we all know, generally one mistake leads to a worse mistake. And that's the thing you would like to avoid.
Yeah, really avoid it. And again, like we talked about a little bit earlier, 50% of the families we invite to come aboard as clients, where we've taken you through a very detailed process, are leaving financial advisor relationships. And folks, that's okay, because you're going to graduate to a different level of planning. Not that what you did or who advised you before was bad. It's just different. Like I always use the analogy, if you walk into a Chevy dealer expecting a Volkswagen, you're not going to get what you need.
No.
And you need a customized plan.
That's right. You'll get a car, but it won't be the one that you're looking for.
And all the financial instruments out there, we have to be careful. We're using them for the right reason. For instance, we've got that beautiful Scioto River right here in the middle of Columbus, right? You don't use your car to drive down the river, right?
Not a good plan. Some people have attempted it, and they've failed miserably.
Right. That was probably late at night and just didn't realize the road ended, and now they're in the river.
Don't be the guy that's trying to drive across the river.
Right. Or you don't take your Sea Ray boat to drive down, Riverside Drive or McCoy or Route 71. So we have to use the financial tools that are out there, whether you have a diversified portfolio or you're using insurance or annuities or you buy gas and oil wells. All these different tools need to be properly coordinated based on your needs, not the person selling them to you.
And therein lies the issue of preservation, where you may not be utilizing the proper tools that are going to do what is needed to preserve what you have accumulated. You may still be in an aggressive growth mode, which would be far more appropriate for someone who is 20 or 30 years younger than you. For them, perhaps that's fantastic. But not necessarily right for you. And that's where Don does the MRI, your portfolio MRI, and looks at what you have, where you are, and it's less about what you have than what you're doing with it. I mean, I think we've come to the conclusion that it's not necessarily about how big the number is. It's about what you're doing with what you have.
Absolutely. And the amount is irrelevant. And, if you're retired already and you're afraid to enjoy your money, that has no value. So if you're not retired 5 to 10 years out, we need to really analyze what you're doing now and see if you're on track. And, if you have a fear that you come in and you're going to be sold and this and that, first of all, the first visit in our office on Fishinger Road here in Columbus. The first visit, no one becomes a client. We're going to see. My goal really.
See if you pass the test.
Well, the test is, do you need me or not?
Right.
You might be in great shape, and let's validate that. But when we find out there's some gaps missing, and so our 4-step process includes reading the book, which we're talking about today. We're in chapter 3 of 10 chapters. Getting a financial MRI, and then I put together a written income plan. And if you're interested in any of those, 614-545-0277, or email me directly. I'll respond within 12 hours. The longest delay would be 12 hours at Don@Ross Wealth Advisors.
And it will come from Don himself. I mean, this is not one of those things where it goes into a clearinghouse mailbox and it gets sent out to whoever's next on the list. It doesn't work
directly
that way.
to me.
It really doesn't.
And when I'm telling people, Joe, world-class service, these are people that could be leaving boutique firms like us or the giants like Fidelity and UBS or Merrill or something like that. And they're like, yeah, you talk about selling world-class service, Don, and we're getting it. And it's based on educating you first. That's why I wrote a book.
And that's one of the most simple vehicles right now to use to get yourself a little head start before you make the call to 614-545-0277 and Ross Wealth Advisors. Go on the website and get the book.
Yeah, you request it right on the homepage.
Request the book right there on the homepage. It's you go to rosswealthadvisors.com, scroll down just a little bit. It's right there. There's a video above it. There's a button. You click on the button and request the book.
Pretty easy.
I mean, it's really a no-brainer. I mean, at the worst case scenario.
In fact,
worst case scenario is you find out that everything that you have in place right now is absolutely perfect, and you don't need to change a thing today. That's worst case scenario.
In fact, I got 25 books sitting on my conference table right now. I usually order 100 at a time, so 75 are gone. Hey, I'd love to get rid of those 25 in the next few days. So
absolutely.
Give a call, go to the website, and request one. And I think after reading it, you go, wow. Well, there's 2 reactions I want. Wow, I need to talk to this guy. Or, wow, he's too conservative for me. That means we're not a good fit. And I love figuring out if it makes sense to work together because I'm not for everybody and don't want to be for everybody. But where we're a good fit,
You know,
Our clients love it.
I've had people actually email me and say, "Well, why does Don say he won't work with everyone?" It seems kind of strange for a person in business. I don't remember. I've had emails, from people who have said, "Why does he say he doesn't work with everybody?" It seems that it's weird, like he's almost turning away a customer. And and my response to that is, well, if you listen to what he says and how he says that, he's not saying, if I don't like you, I'm not working with you. But the idea is that you have to be a good fit for your approach and for the approach that Ross Wealth Advisors takes to the abundant retirement that the person is looking for.
Yeah, I'm conservative, and I write about that in the book. The book starts with who I am, where did I come from, my parents, my friends, my Army boot camp drill sergeants, those have all formed who I've become as an advisor, and I'm very conservative. I don't want to take too much risk of your money. There's plenty of advisors out there that would love to throw caution to wind and invest your money. If it loses, so
what? If that's what you want, go ahead.
Yeah,
I wouldn't recommend
we're not that way, right?
I would not recommend that. But and another thing is that I don't know about you, but I think it's fair to say I know, at least from my perspective, I would much rather spend my time and effort working for and with someone that I mesh with, someone that I get along with. I don't necessarily, now I understand in life there are things that you have to do in business or in your career where you have to deal with people who are less than pleasant or maybe that you don't necessarily like, but you don't necessarily like that concept. You like to work with people that are like-minded. It makes sense.
Well, when I'm doing public speaking, I list out who the type of people we want to work with, and one of the bullet points is salt of the earth people, and there's plenty of them in this town, plenty of them in this country, because they're just genuinely interested in looking for advice, taking advice, and then being dedicated to stay and be coached, as I call it, for the rest of their lives. Because if you become a client through our process, I look at it as a lifetime commitment. On my end, you can leave whenever you want, and thankfully we have very, very little turnover of clients. Unfortunately, obviously death, and some do move away. But I talk about this in my book that I want to get in your hands. Call me, 614-545-0277. In Chapter 3, you'll love the preservation strategies we talk in place, because, again, I believe if retirement and approaching retirement is a fundamental change of your life, you've got to make a fundamental change with how you're positioning your savings, whether it's in a 401k, an IRA, your brokerage account at Fidelity or Schwab, wherever it is. Let's take a look at it with a financial MRI and make sure you're not in a position that could derail your retirement or pending retirement.
And that is the key. And if you are in that particular situation, if that's where you're retired currently, or you're retirement minded, as Don likes to say, that's, as he describes it, within, say, 5 to 10 years of retirement.
Even 10 years out, you bet.
Yeah, even 10 years away from what you see as the time that you're going to choose to begin your abundant retirement, then you are certainly the person, you are the family, whatever that family unit is, that needs to reach out and communicate with Ross Wealth Advisors. A couple places you can start. The website is a great one, rosswealthadvisors.com. If you can't find it or can't remember that, just type in Ross Wealth or Don Ross. You'll see some golf courses, but you'll also see Ross Wealth Advisors. The telephone number, 614-545-0277. You can call that number anytime. You can call right now. You can call at 3 o'clock in the morning. You can call at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And you're going to get a human being who is going to help you. And Don will get back with you as soon as practical, usually within 12 hours, certainly within the 24-hour period.
Pretty quick.
That starts from the time you pick up the phone and call Ross Wealth Advisors. Again, 614-545-0277. That will get you to Ross Wealth Advisors.